All right, let's jump straight into this. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really intriguing and honestly kinda spooky text. The whole premise is that hidden psychological frameworks are subtly pulling the strings of our daily lives. According to this material, the way we act, what we buy, who we immediately trust, and how we negotiate, well, it might not be nearly as spontaneous as we think it is. We're going to explore what the source refers to as dark psychology, and I am absolutely pumped to walk you through these concepts. So think about this for a second. What if literally every choice you made today was subtly planted in your mind by someone else? It's a pretty unsettling thought, right? Well, the source text we're analyzing establishes this incredibly high-stakes tone right out of the gate. It challenges our basic belief in free will during everyday interactions, basically claiming that human behavior can be predictably hacked if you just know the right buttons to push.
And the text absolutely does not pull its punches. It states flat out, most people live their entire lives as puppets. Wow. But it also promises that a select few actually know how to see those hidden strengths. So we're going to break down 6 specific tricks the source guarantees will work 100% of the time, whether you're using them to protect yourself or to influence the people around you. Let's see exactly how they break these methods down.
Starting off with Theme 1, Information and Dominance. This section is all about extracting the truth and winning negotiations. Okay, the source calls this first tactic the false confession trick. It's basically designed to act like a human lie detector without ever having to officially cross-examine someone. Notice the stark contrast between these two approaches. The amateur move is just a direct accusation. Asking, hey, did you take my $50? Gives the person plenty of wiggle room to just say no. But the dark trick? It artificially escalates the whole situation. You look them dead in the eye and calmly say, I know you took the $200. The text points out something fascinating here. Humans absolutely hate awkward situations, sure, but you know what we love even more? Correcting people. A guilty person's immediate reflex instinct is going to be to defend themselves against this huge exaggeration. They'll instantly snap back with something like, what? No way, I only took 50. And boom, without even realizing it, they've unwittingly confessed to the actual crime just to correct the record on the fake one. Well, so that tiny stretch of silence felt a little uncomfortable, didn't it? Even just for a few seconds. And honestly, that is exactly the point the source is making. The text refers to this next tactic as strategic silence, and it literally calls it the single most dangerous weapon in business and arguments. You see, most people are absolutely terrified of dead air. When someone gives you an answer you don't like or throws out a price that's way too low, your instinct is to argue, right? Actually, scratch that. Don't argue. Instead, you just stare at them. Intense eye contact, completely blank-faced. Just hold it for 5 to 10 seconds. This tactic literally weaponizes silence. It creates this unbearable psychological anxiety. The other person is going to feel this desperate, burning need to fill that void. To break the tension, they'll just start rambling. They'll make unprompted excuses, spill secrets, or even lower their own asking price completely against their own interests. As the source bluntly puts it, he who speaks first loses. That brings us right into Theme 2, Engineering Subconscious Compliance, or the mechanics of getting a yes. This whole theme leans heavily on a psychological concept called cognitive dissonance. The source applies this to a super clever tactic known as the Ben Franklin effect. The text proposes this really fascinating flip on standard logic. Say you want someone to like you. Maybe it's a crush, a workplace rival, or a super strict boss. Your instinct is probably to do a favor for them, right? Nope. Instead, you ask them for a small favor. Ask to borrow a pen, or ask for a tiny piece of advice. This completely triggers their cognitive dissonance. The human mind just cannot easily handle the idea of helping someone it dislikes. So to resolve that weird mental friction, the brain subconsciously rewires its own logic. It literally tells itself, well, I'm doing a favor for this person, so I guess I must actually like them. You didn't even lift a finger, but they suddenly trust you more because their own brain forced them to. So the takeaway here is that leveraging our internal discomfort is ridiculously effective. We see this exact same thing happen with reciprocal concession. This is the psychological engine running behind a method the source calls the door-in-the-face technique, which practically guarantees a yes. Let's look at how this engine actually works out in the real world. Step 1, you make a completely outrageous request. Say you really just want to borrow $100. Instead, you ask for 1,000. Step 2, this obviously triggers an inevitable rejection. They're going to say no. But crucially, saying no triggers a tiny hint of subconscious guilt in the person rejecting you. Their guard is up, but they feel a little bad. Then comes step 3. You immediately drop down to your actual goal. You sigh and say, okay, fair enough, but could you just manage 100 then? Because you lowered your demands so drastically, it feels to them like you just made this massive compromise. That psychological obligation kicks right in, and they're going to feel absolutely compelled to match your cooperative energy and say yes. It's a brilliant illustration of how relative our perception of value really is.
Moving on to Theme 3, Subtle Anchors of Influence. This explores hacking our evolution and biology. Here, the text introduces the whisper hack as the ultimate trick to command a room. Think about it. We've all been conditioned to believe that yelling is how you show authority. But the source argues the exact opposite. Yelling actually signals an amateur loss of control. Whispering, on the other hand, commands immediate, absolute focus. Why on earth does dropping your volume suddenly make everyone pay attention? Well, the text claims it all boils down to our biology. From a biological standpoint, human evolution has hardwired our brains to associate whispers with secrets or with immediate danger. When you lower your voice, people literally can't help themselves. They automatically lean in and tune out all the external noise just to catch your words. And then there's the 1-second touch. The source suggests that during a high-energy moment, like, say, you're both sharing a genuine laugh, you lightly brush the person's arm for literally just 1 second. It has to feel completely accidental. This tiny micro-interaction causes a microscopic spike of dopamine and oxytocin in their brain. Because it was so fast, their conscious mind won't even flag it as intentional. But their subconscious? It'll spend the rest of the day trying to analyze that lingering warmth. According to the text, by doing this, you have officially rented free space in their head. And that brings us to our final section, the burden of knowledge, or seeing the hidden strings. The source material wraps up its whole analysis with a pretty stark warning about the sheer power of these manipulative tactics. It claims that while knowledge is power, absolute power can, corrupt. Once you start viewing your daily human interactions through this lens of engineered compliance and subtle manipulation, the text argues that it changes your perspective forever. So I'm going to leave you with the exact same provocative question posed by the source. Now that you see the hidden strings, can you ever really unsee them? I highly encourage you to test your observation skills this week. See if you can spot these dark psychology tactics being used out in the real world. Maybe the next time you're in a negotiation or even just standing in a crowded room. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Explainers, and keep exploring the fascinating structures of the world around you. Catch you next time.